Thanks, Toby, and I need to first start off by apologizing profusely because I believe I'm keeping you from lunch. So I'll try and make this very informative, and hopefully you walk out here feeling that time well spent. So my topic for today is all about Digihumanity, something Datacentrix, the company I work for, has put together to explain our strategy. And Digihumanity is really our belief in what's happening in future and today already. We see all of this technology, and you've heard through all the speakers this morning, this term called Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I'll stop you there. I am not talking about another regurgitation of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'm going to make it real, and I'm going to explain some items we are seeing happening at ground level. But what's very key is the Fourth Industrial Revolution is busy getting people to work smarter in a more cohesive way that we've seen before. It's bringing communities together. In fact, it is actually bringing competitors together. It is getting us to work together through this thing called code. We are all sharing code at one point in time. In fact, you sitting there are most probably unwillingly creating code yourself, not even knowing it, by just looking at your smartphone and seeing what's happening. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you take the world's data, if I could accumulate that into one, in 2016, we were sitting at 1.4 zettabytes of data. Now, I don't want you to work out what a zettabyte is, but to bring that down, by 2020, we were standing at 5.6 zettabytes. So all the data we've accumulated over time in 2016 came to 1.4. But in the last 5 years, we've almost done 4 times as much data. And if you look at the projection, that's going to just exponentially expand. And that is through our ability to network devices together, use code to integrate the data, and then share it. But we have a massive challenge outside code. And that is something that the World Forum has categorically raised a flag against. People, in 2000, we were sitting at about 6.1 billion people globally. In 2050, 9.7 billion people, a massive population. I think if I remember correctly, we're standing today in 2020 at about 7.1 billion. Well on towards that projected number that you see of 9.7. What does this do for us, and what problem or challenges does it create? For farmers, it is extremely important to understand it means our food security is at risk. We need to be able to feed these people. We need to be able to understand what is their requirements and how we are going to get food to them. The problem we are facing is things like global warming. The problem we are facing is land, or workable land. Now we have to look back at technology and this code that we are talking about. How do I apply that code? Machine learning, all of this fancy technology that we're seeing in the farming communities. How do I use that to produce enough food to feed the population? And with that comes a lot of challenges. If I just look at this data insights that everybody was talking about, for me to understand precision farming and to understand what I can do with the same input cost, drive a better yield. With the same input cost, be more precise, or even go as far as to say, how can I reduce my input cost and produce more? I think that's most probably the magic number everybody's looking for. And if I lose some of the examples this morning, people are looking at sensor data. How do I put sensors into the soil? How do I put sensors onto my entire manufacturing plant? How do I put sensors into even the smallest nano sensors into how I categorize my harvest? Tracking, surveillance, as we've just seen, the supply chain and the entire trade data, knowing what is exactly required when, at what point in time. And I think that is why we're seeing this phenomenon around vertical farming. I was stunned to see how many vertical farmers has cropped up in Joburg that's supplying small crops to specific outlets, to high-end restaurants, and they're doing it very successfully by using data insights. So data is definitely this new oil that we are getting reference to. But to do that, I face certain challenges. I think, looking at this morning, has not really been talked about. The first challenge for me, and this is practically what we're facing with today, and you'll see me going into it, is most probably the network. How do I make sure I can connect to those sensors? I can connect to those data sources. How do I make sure that even if I have the code, even if I have the application, how do I get the sources and this platform everybody's talking about connected? And then I go into security. How do I make sure how whatever I'm connecting, I'm doing it in a secure fashion? How do I make sure that when I have a multi-tenant platform, or if you're a business-to-business or business-to-consumer organization, how do I do that securely and also doing that within regulation? Poppy is immediately coming to the front, and if you trade globally, as many of you do, GDPR as well. Now, we've seen some cases globally where this data integrity is being used to generate cash, Bitcoin, but for the wrong people. And I'll go into that security in a bit. But let me spend some time on this networking piece. If you think of networking, you would just think the typical players, the ISPs, in local terms, Telkom, Vodacom, MTN, Liquid Telecoms, all of those that you will approach and say, I need some connectivity. Well, it's definitely changing, and especially in the agri sector, where we don't always have this ability to go to one vendor and say, please give me connectivity. In fact, some of them don't even have infrastructure in your area. How do you then do it? SDN, or software-defined networking, has given us the ability to create an holistic single network with multiple tenants using any medium that's available. Be that fixed line, be that wireless, be that satellite technology. It helps us to connect anywhere in South Africa, or for that matter in Africa, your operation onto ground. Now, you've heard terms like LoRa or white space frequencies. All of that is possible. But it means nothing if you don't have this overarching layer to manage all of that connectivity points. It's very important, and we've done this very successfully locally. And two examples that spring to mind. First one, we've heard about Kruger Park. Sandparks was a massive challenge. You know, some of the outlets or some of the camps still sat with dial-up modems. Some camps had such a low utilization that they couldn't even send email properly. We have successfully deployed an entire dedicated network in Sandparks that offers them massive, massive bandwidth to do what they need to do, getting all of this data to connect from one point A to point B. And we've done that not with one type of technology. We brought the best of the technologies as well as the available technologies in the area together, and we provided that platform. The other one, Senbes. where we built direct point-to-point links, where we used fiber where possible. We used radio or even high beam satellites to bring that down, where the cost versus the benefit makes sense. And then obviously local, when you look at your local operation, how do I connect that all up? All of that technologies is quite important that you see that as one. And the reason being, because you are activating all of this data and all of the sensories and sometimes very expensive equipment over this network, like drone technology. I think it's quite, I'm a gadget man. I'm not sure how many of you like gadgets. I think most of us, my wife, I think, divorced me most probably 7 times before because of my gadget fatigue, she calls it. But she hasn't yet spoke to the lawyers, so I think I'm okay. My wallet is safe. She's not abusing it yet. She promised that the equivalent spend will happen somewhere else. But gadgets, as we've seen, sometimes is quite important, like drones. We've seen some farmers who've used drones very successfully, and others end up using it for a while and then it just goes into a cupboard. But it's bringing that value back to the business that makes sense. But then there's one caveat. All of these gadgets, all of the stuff we are adding on, also exposes us from a security perspective. I wanted to play you a video quickly, or I'm still going to play you a video. It's about 1.5 minutes. And I just wanted to illustrate, as we start moving towards this connected world, as we start using more and more code to wrap around our humanity, as we start moving towards this AI world where Pepper and some other technologies become part of our lives. I remember a while back I saw a video clip of this guy saying, I will never ever allow an AI or a bot to control my life. And he was sitting in the doctor's practice, and the doctor was busy examining him, and the next moment his phone popped up with an alert, you're late for your next appointment. And he said, sorry doc, I need to go, I need to make my appointment. At that moment, technology was controlling your life. I know of people who will trust the app on their phone more than someone telling them that has actually happened. Now again, that is part of technology controlling our lives. Now, in this video, I want to show you, as soon as we do that, the risk and security risks that gets opened up.
Well, I'm 13 years old, and my name is Ruben Paul. I live in Austin, Texas, and I like to hack. 'I just hacked the drone, and now I have full control of it. I can fly it, I can video record, I can get all kinds of data back.
%93 of the attacks that we saw coming into Internet of Things are really weak password related things. We encourage people who are buying these smart devices and deploying them at home, just change the default password that come from the vendors. The second important section or part is to update the devices. And the third tip that I would give is know your device, know the operational features and how it integrates with your home.
This is the technology that's going to be going into future devices such as autonomous cars, flying cars, things like this. So if we don't secure it now, then connectivity without controls can become catastrophic.
So I wonder how many of you now wondering who is accessing the stuff that you already own. I think if I look at security as an overall theme, the first thing that springs to mind is the who. who is accessing my stuff and for what reason. Who is that person with the hoodie that is using code to access stuff I own? Now, I immediately know some of you would go, that's exactly why I don't invest in the future. That's exactly, I still use my paper and my pen. But at one point in time, the pressure is going to mount on you because the competitiveness of your neighbor and up-and-coming farmers will allow them to produce far better crops, manage their livestock far better, manage their supply chain much better. And at one point, you will have no choice but to start moving in here. But yet, this risk exists. The biggest thing that we sometimes forget about is our mobile phone, the device we sometimes take for granted. Now, I can almost guarantee you 95, even 98% of this room is sitting with some sort of smart device. Now, think back. I want to take you back to 12 years ago, and this is not long. 10, 12 years ago, this thing did not exist. There was nothing like this. This thing called smart wasn't there. In 2008, iPhone came out with the first real proper smartphone with all apps, followed soon by Android. And in the last 10 years, this thing has become so entrenched in our lives, all the code and apps that happens on here, our lives is saved within this little thin device. If someone get access to this, they have access to our lives. Sometimes you don't know it already, but you are being tracked, as you've seen from some of the big players, knowing and selling and marketing to you through what you are gathering and creating on this device. We looked about surveillance. We see, I think Fani presented about surveillance and all the stuff they can do. Imagine the security dude in the hoodie gets access to your surveillance server. Know exactly what's going on. He doesn't have to pay spies. He doesn't have to pay people off on your site. He can actually use that to look exactly what's happening. Plan the attacks. Even sell that data. And how do they do it? By a simple thing called a virus or a malware that they send within an attachment saying you've just won something, or click here to get 50% discount on your take-a-lot purchase. And immediately you're infected. So I encourage you, go out into our Datacentrix booth, go speak to the security experts, and they'll show you how we can help you mitigate this. Do what you do best. Farm. Do what you do best. Work in the agri sector. Partner with people like ourselves who understand the risk, understand the pitfalls, understand where and how we connect you securely. And maybe the next slide won't happen to you. Now, I wish I can ask the cameras to face into the audience. Maybe some of them aren't here yet, or they've left the room. But for the entire morning, I saw people walking around asking, what Wi-Fi do I use to get Wi-Fi? How can I get Wi-Fi? What's the Wi-Fi key? Wi-Fi is slow. So I got my engineers to set up a quick hotspot. We called it Guest at Sun. Anybody tried that? Well, we took that man of the middle attack, and I obviously hide the password, hide the usernames, Poppy. But maybe some of that passwords is yours. I suggest you change it. Okay? This is how easy it is. It took us literally 12 minutes, that hotspot was up, and within an hour and a half, we had about 260 credentials which I can use to go and access their stuff. Obviously, there was a lot of encryption, so we didn't see that, but all of the open plain text passwords that your phone, your little device like this, has a built-in code feature. Oh, you are connected to a Wi-Fi, to the internet. Let me use it. Here's the passwords. And this is how people gain access. understand what we need to secure our lives. So in a nutshell, I again encourage you, this new digital world, this fourth industrial revolution, where code is busy wrapping our lives, where applications, data is absolutely part of our DNA, absolutely part of Agri as a sector, absolutely part of us driving into the future. Don't be scared of it, but understand the risk. Partner with the right people that can help you harness the power of data in a secure, usable, and showing the evidence of a return of investment. With that, I thank you very much, and please go and enjoy your lunch.
I told you it was good, hey? Good, to the point, and very good. I'm a complete security paranoiac. People have been thinking I'm crazy for years. Eventually, they all started understanding after the whole Cambridge Analytica thing with Facebook that you can't be paranoid enough, especially on public Wi-Fi. So, we're going to go off for a break, but first, I'm just going to check in with Pepper. That was fascinating. What do you think? And can people come and have selfies with you, Pepper?
Yes, you are welcome to have a selfie with me, but